Today at Embr, its hosts Robb, Vallozzi, and Jason Dominique and their guests are not financial advisors unless otherwise disclaimed. The content on Today at Embr is for educational and entertainment purposes only and merely cite their own personal opinions. Know that all investments involve some form of risk. Please work with an investment professional. And now, on to the show.
Welcome to Today at Embr episode 26. I am your host, Jason Dominique. I'm the CEO of the Embr project, and I am with a special co-host today. You might have seen him in our communities. It's Mr. Dan. Welcome, Dan.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So let's take this opportunity to maybe give our audience some 2 cents on what you do, Dan, at the Embr Project and your role.
Yeah. Wow. I think many people who are watching have probably seen me do a little bit of everything at this point. Started in the community as a moderator many moons ago. And now I help the team on the back end and creating a bridge between the community and our business, and also making sure that the customers of checkout and our future product suite, are taken care of. That they have sort of a structure around them so that our products have decent support. We do say 24/7 support, and we mean it.
Yeah, awesome. So, Dan, as the head of our community success and, customer support, I thought it was a great segue, or at least a great idea to have him on for today's guest, which we're quite lucky to have Ayush and Susmit that they built basically the decentralized version of Zoom, and it's called Huddle01. And we'll bring them on. So let's welcome them.
Hey Jason, hey Dan.
Welcome.
Hey Ayush, hey
Hey
Susmit.
guys, nice to see you all.
Yeah, nice to have you on. So let me begin with this first question. Sort of why should we consider, or why is it such an important thing to have a decentralized version of sort of a massive empirical Zoom corporation?
Great question. I think the answer to this is a pretty can break into two parts, more philosophical and also more technological. So on the philosophical angle, uh, as we all know that in Zoom or in any other centralized solutions right now, you have to chat and you essentially express yourselves in a manner which could not be completely non-biased. So we still, as humans, have a lot of biases. Still, it's inherent in ourselves, and that's where something like the innovations in the last 3 years happened in the NFT space, which is a new crypto primitive, the most expressive primitive out in the world itself. Now, what it says is that now you don't have to be Ayush from India, or you don't have to be Jason from Boston per se. You could be a board ape. That's it. And now you can be a board ape and you can just have a chat, be completely pseudonymous. You represent a community and you can have a chat in the manner which you want to have. So, a new way to express yourselves using the primitives which you have, and where even your voice could be changed. You can make your pitch shifters as a voice and do a lot of things which you couldn't have done earlier. The technological answer to that is that Zoom is a very top-down approach system where it's a network product. That means the more people use Zoom, the more Zoom grows. And it has grown so much post-COVID that it has become a $47 billion monolith and empire itself. Now, we as the people who have built as a creator, as a user who have done live streams using Zoom, who have done meetings using Zoom, left and right and center, we don't get any value back out of it. We still pay $15 to $20 per month per license if we want to use a premium version of Zoom.
Yeah.
And that's where something like Huddle comes in, which says, hey, let's take a break. Let's, instead of building a top-down system, what if we build a bottom-up system? That means the people who are providing the value to the network, they get the value back in itself. And
Yeah.
that's what we are doing at Huddle. We're building a bottom-up system, and bottom-up systems are decentralized in nature, and that's why decentralization. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I couldn't have made up, like, that's the perfect answer. And obviously there's a lot to unpack there. So if we take a step back and we give you the opportunity to obviously present yourself and how you sort of came up, nobody ends up building not necessarily a competitor, but an alternative to Zoom just out of sheer luck. So at Embr, we're all about ideation to launch. And, we're curious to know how did you guys end up thinking about doing this and actually going from just like, we're having a beer or something like that. And wouldn't that be great to have an alternative to Zoom, and taking it to the next step and actually doing it? So maybe Susmit, you want to maybe start with yourself, a quick introduction, and
Yep. So I was kind of an open source programmer during my college days, and I stumbled upon Bitcoin. And during that time, people used to fork Bitcoin, like Litecoin came and all of those things. So I forked a Bitcoin, and that was like a moment for me into the blockchain itself. So by that time, I had played with quite a technology, from machine learning to chatbots to augmented reality. But I have seen that all of the technology was actually designed to take the value out of the user's pocket, right? The blockchain was the only technology that was giving value to the user, and it was proving that it's a win-win situation. Everyone is making a profitable, like they gets everything a piece of pie. So that was like, okay, I want to work into this technology. And the best part is that it's open source in nature, and I was an open source programmer by then. So I started working. ERC20 standards came, ERC721 standard came. I wrote a couple of contracts on top of that. Then I saw that, okay, there were coins emerging, right? So the first business that would be definitely would be an exchange of coins, right? And so you can see on any chain, a decentralized exchange has the highest business, and that's the first step that gets built on any chain that is launched, because of the inherent nature of the communication. So that was my thesis. So I built India's first decentralized exchange, but India's regulation was very uncertain at that point of time. So I took an exit with CoinDCX. CoinDCX is right now, so that was again, CoinDCX was a startup back then. Right now, it's valued at $2 billion, and a lot
wow.
of the wallet technology have been built. So I worked there for a year. I led the blockchain team there, made a couple of wallets out there. Then during when I was working at CoinDCX, Ayush just pinged me a message on LinkedIn, right? And I don't reply to my DMs. Like, he was so lucky that I replied to his message,
It's
and he
destiny.
was like, yeah. And it was only 3 hours to 12 o'clock, and he said, okay, do you want to do a hackathon? So I was like, okay, let's do a hackathon. It was a COVID period, and I had a lot of free time, and so I just wanted to explore more technology. And then we decided to do a hackathon. And then I put a deal on the table for Ayush. So Ayush's future plan was to do a further studies to, he wanted to go to MS, but I wanted to do a startup only. So I put a deal. If we won this hackathon, you would do a startup with me, right? So that was the
Ayush
plan.
just like laying down the terms.
Yeah, I laid down the term. So this, like, so this, you can see the co-founder, how do they do at the partnership level and all of those things. And the hustle of Ayush was so much back then that he was actually learning Solidity and all of those things, vagera. So he was actually coding everything, the protocols he was playing around. So it was a hackathon, ETH Global. It was the Filepunch hackathon, and the idea was simple, right? The main drawbacks, when I was designing the decentralized exchange, right, people were not actually using the decentralized exchange because they were not knowing about the Bitcoin itself. The problem lied there. There was a very huge learning curve out there. So I had a very hard learning that doing a technology first approach will give you a very setback, right?
Yeah.
So if you can see, before decentralized exchanges emerged, centralized exchanges emerged, and market has voted that centralized exchanges have more volume than a decentralized exchanges. So those, the customer experience will always front run the technological ones and all of those things. So this was the learning, and I just clearly mentioned, I use that, okay, whatever we are building, we build with a customer first approach, and then we engineer the technology behind it. And the answer was lying in front of us. We saw that people are propagating the idea of Web3 in a very Web2 way, right? So why can't we decentralize Zoom itself? And we then just started researching all how to implement, what are the benefits out there. So as Ayush has said, those are the benefits also, but I would further add the benefit that we have discovered on the technological change, and how marrying it with a crypto economic protocol, we can enhance the system, right? There is no like community owned, community governed RTC infrastructure that actually
Yeah.
doesn't exist. And it has a very high proponent that it exists. Like, this technology has to be in users hand, not in a closed garden, right? And people have to derive value out of it, because they are the people who are generating, putting in the value out of it. And it can only be done with a crypto economic protocol. It cannot be done with a top down approach. Now if you can see, suppose me and Ayush are here in India, and if we do a Zoom meeting, so it goes to a server that is a black box.
I know, it's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Bad.
I've experienced this because our team is fully distributed, and sometime, whether it's Google Meet or Zoom, it relays like to the closest like centralized
Mhm.
type of server, and then and so depending on how congested that server is, it will affect the stream. Me being in North America, most of the time it's not an issue.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at more like not remote, but like uh, more far away from metropoles or things like that, it creates a bottleneck in the stream, and it's no good. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I had to intervene.
Yep, yep. No, definitely. You picked up the point. Like, it's very few people actually find that appreciating in nature. So it's basically a black box. So first of all, you never know what's happening with your data. And I'm pretty much sure that Web2 companies rely on data economy to get their business up and running, because they're putting a freemium
More
model
than
out
pretty
there.
sure, Susmit. You can speak freely here. You can say they
Yes.
are without any
Yeah.
doubt.
Yep, yep. So if we get this, so there's so, but you know that these technologies are actually providing value to the users, the communication value, right? Now, if you take that value, put it on a crypto economic protocol, and give it to the community, right? So it's like a higher value unlock. And you can see now, me and Ayush are doing a meeting, but someone here in India will be hosting a node. So it's like everyone is reaping their effects, right? We are getting to do meeting also, and the node is like earning for providing that meeting computational and bandwidth power.
Yes.
And this is something that has not been explored, and we are actively working to get this in hand of user itself. So these were the thoughts. And so it was like so it was like a kid's imagination, right? So the genesis of idea was basically this, that don't do a technological first approach, otherwise you will always be making some defi contract with collateral, or some TPS with a chain itself, right? Because if you will ask a kid to draw a sun, right, he will paint the sun in green color, because he doesn't has that knowledge biases, right? So we have to remove our knowledge biases to get that innovative product on the idea basis. And once we have that, then you engineer the technology, and we can get that a beautiful product out there. But
Yeah.
mainly our major focus is that we make it community governed, community owned. That is something that we want to actively work on. And so think of it like this, like Polygon is a layer 2 for chains, like for Ethereum space, like, so it scales those transactions. But what if, like, there's an RTC module, like real-time communication module for the chains out there, right? So now your smart contracts will have voice itself. They can interact with other smart contracts, or other
Yeah.
wallet can, all of those things. So it's like giving a social value. The value, your smart contracts will have more value, because social value comes from human interaction, and that human interaction is most probably digital in nature nowadays. And that infrastructure would be owned by the community itself. So whatever those things are made, the profit sharing that is being made by the protocol itself, that goes into the hands of community who are for the protocol itself. So
Wow.
yep.
That's great. I mean,
That's
I
fascinating.
can't imagine you have something to add to this, Ayush, you know?
I think it's fully comprehensive. Nothing to add here. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to add. Dan, you have any questions on this, man? There's so much. I'm sure you have some questions that just popped in your head. I know I have a few, so I'll let you start.
Well, first, I just have a comment. I think, you mentioned sort of like a social utility, and I think that's wonderful because something else that you guys do as well is sort of the NFT side of this whole web conferencing. And I think, by branching NFTs in there, you provide more social utility to NFTs, and you also really kind of there's like a community building there that you don't get just from NFTs or web conferencing alone. I think that's a really, really cool idea. People are looking for ways to use their NFTs in practical ways, and you're empowering NFT users. And I think in general, it's a really cool way to also break that bias. Like you said, someone might not realize someone is from a different corner of the earth, and I think that's pretty cool in a world that's becoming growingly international. And I think it's a perfect way of blending technology, and I'm in love with your guys' concept, genuinely.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks a lot.
Yep, yep.
This has been done during the we at Huddle, we follow a lot of like having the crypto primitive of NFTs itself is something which was ideated after a long time in September of 2021 itself. The reason was that we're doing a lot of hackathons. Again, like after doing the hackathon itself, Huddle, we have something in common is that we try to go to as many hackathons as possible, not as sponsors, but again as a proper participant itself, because you get to know all the new things which are floating around. And it was a proper NFT summer which was happening, and that's where we realized, as you mentioned, Dan, correctly, that social utility part of things, NFTs had a lot of use cases, but they were still getting discovered. Now, just if you marry a RTC infrastructure or a real-time communication with an NFT itself, it's like a proper bazooka. If you can have that.
Match
So
made in
that's what we
heaven.
did. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a match made in heaven, and that's what we did. And then we added a layer of token gating on top of it. That means, you know what, if you have a board ape only, and then you get a custom subdomain called boardape.huddle01.com, that means only if you have board apes in your wallet, that you can enter the calls. So now it's also an exclusivity for you to have a proper tribe mentality call itself. So going back to the early days, you can have a proper call in the way you want, and you get your own front end where there are monkeys roaming around, there are apes there all around and stuff. So you feel like you're at home. You don't feel like in Discord you don't get that video vibe. It's very good in the terms of audio vibe, but here, so Discord is a good home. Uh, Huddle is a good Airbnb to have a proper good time, and then you can go back to your home at Discord itself. So yeah.
Yeah,
Love it.
I'm curious, that we expand a little bit on, this idea that from Telegram to Discord, I mean, they already have, and maybe this is where maybe Dan, you can provide a lot of of uh, of hands-on reality. But we've been, not myself so much, but Dan has been involved in multiple communities, and it's always, um, how can we better create a fun and interactive type of environment, and unless you truly leverage like the voice chat and stuff like that, I think it's really limited to the actual stream of communication and then the channels and things like that. But I'm interested in knowing, Dan, how do you see Huddle 01 being like something that goes from 0 to 1 in terms of like what's the opportunity here? I'm with Huddle in regards to even our own community and others' community.
I think community curation is a very important part of the blockchain business, and I think what Huddle does is provide quite an interesting way, almost like a sort of a half step to like a metaverse where you're not really like in metaverse, but you're still able to interact in a way where you're able to put away certain like physical realities, and you can interact with your friend. One moment he's a bored ape, the next moment he's a savage basket or something like that. There's all I love that concept, and I think in terms of community curation and creating a fun environment, people like these kinds of creative outlets to kind of I think when people go to like a Discord, they kind of want to have a good time. They want to interact with their friends, etc. I don't know if this is something you guys are considering, but a Discord integration with Huddle01 would be like game changing. Discord is already such a big crypto community and blockchain savvy audience. What Huddle is doing in itself is kind of like a paradigm shift, interacting with people through Web3 technology down to the ENS. I noticed as well. We were playing with Huddle a little while ago, and as soon as I connected my wallet, it recognized my ENS, which is it's not on the screen right now, but it's pretty darn cool. How you can apply that. You can also create verification in a certain way. Like thinking like Telegram. You were mentioning before, you usually don't answer Telegram DMs, right? But what happens if someone sent you a Telegram DM, but you could kind of verify that there was an ENS behind it that you could verify is the real person that you're speaking with. I think like what Huddle is doing, applying it to Telegram and Discord would be fascinating. I could go on for hours about that, but yeah, I think Huddle01, the video conferencing, it's a game changer. I'm in love with the idea.
What a few things you just said, Dan, makes me think that Huddle01 is also almost like a physical representation of where we had envisioned decentralized parts of this decentralized idea, from having your true identity and then connecting in a decentralized world, owning your own data. So, I mean, it ticks a lot of the boxes, right? And I think this is truly exciting. Now, maybe there's a lot of things, obviously, from Susmit and Ayush that you've seen that you've just said, but I'm very much interested in sort of where you're at now and what sort of, because I heard off air we did a small briefing before, and you were saying there's really exciting stuff coming, and I'd like to know sort of, without revealing too much, or at least what you can, sort of where this is going and what are the next steps, and yeah.
I think, yeah, I'll just talk more on the overall holistic plan. Then I'll pass the baton to Sushmit as well to talk more on the infra level, because that's the innovation with Sushmit as the tech co-founder, and also the dev team has done a lot. In terms of where we are, how we started, the philosophy is very simple. We'll build the infrastructure, not trying to decentralize on day one itself, because of not taking a technological first approach and just doing a user first approach. So in crypto, it's a new way now. It's a magic money, right? You can just have money, and then you can just create a token, and then you can have nodes all across the earth. That's one way to go. That means that we can just, on day one, where what we could have done is that just try to work on decentralizing the technology itself, the infrastructure, and just give nodes all across the world, have a huddle token itself, and so that people can run their own nodes itself. But we realized, after doing a lot of market research, after being in the space for a long time now, that solving for supply of nodes first might not be a great way to get a lot of demand and get 100 million people into the crypto world. So what we did was that we built the infrastructure in which a couple of things are still centralized, but added a lot of decentralized Web3 infrastructures like Filecoin on recordings, IPFS on the hot layer, Filecoin on the cold layer, added live peer for live streaming the calls, authenticating it via MetaMask and also sign in via ETH and stuff like that. And right now, what we did was that on the infrastructure itself, we built our own application on top of it. Now, as soon as we build the own application on top of it, we made it very Web3 native, very vertical itself, that people, we can have a good amount of users or to use Huddle itself. And then progressively, we'll give our infrastructure in terms of SDKs so that people can also build on top of it and build more video apps on top of it. And then progressively decentralize it so that when the nodes are live, they are earning from day one itself. They don't have to wait for demand to come on it. They have demand already. So it will be like an iOS 14.1 update going to 14.2, but the 14.2 means that, hey, you know what, now your backend has changed a bit. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just that now few of the people who are running the nodes will be earning some money, but your latency will become better. There will be less
So
jitter buffer.
so you're solving the cold start, which we tend to say chicken and egg, and it's like, how do you convince people to come and do that when there's no traffic? It's like, well, that's not interesting. And then so you're building the volume in a centralized way, and then once you hit a certain critical mass, you're like, let's flip the script and let's move into DeFi and yeah, and give a certain guaranteed type of traffic. So I like that, and also just to build another parallel, and I think you guys hit the mark very very well. And it's not every project that understand this, is that Web3 is absolutely mind bending in terms of what it can do, and and everything. It's extremely powerful, but the only way you'll get people to adopt and use this technology is if it feels like Web 2. And unless you don't unlock this, you'll never onboard anyone, because change people just want familiarity. They need their cues, and it needs to feel Zoomish, for it to have people to come in. Because if it's too complex to onboard, people are not going to come. So I think you've hit that mark very, very well. And
Yep. Yep, Jason. Remember when electric cars used to be a golf type of car, right? It was
yeah,
that Elon Musk, he made the shape of that electric car as the conventional electric car. Now people started started to see, oh, okay, this is electric car. It is much more faster. It's much more better. It's much more cleaner. Same is the Huddle protocol, right? The previous RTC protocol are centralized. They are like gasoline type. We are like kind of electric car, but the end user is like the same only what we are providing. Apart from the progressive decentralized approach, like there are two ways. So like people, that okay, you can dump coins on the community, but what about people make that technology and dump that technology infrastructure on the community itself, and they're like expecting, okay, community will like start the adoption all of it. So the way to solve is that make something valuable in nature. Now when you make something valuable, now progressively decentralized, give that value to the community, right? It's not about giving infrastructure to the community, it's always about giving value to the community, and how you can take that approach. And another argument is of the progressive decentralization is that whenever you're decentralizing this system, it is very susceptible to the initial condition, right? So when you decentralize from day zero, so you're like basically giving away the control, and you never know where that might end up. And you basically, instead of going to a decentralized part, it might go to the down trace. So the initial condition is just like an incubation of a seed of a tree. Like to grow it a tree, you have to provide that initial incubation. So that's why it's a spectrum. So you have a centralized and you progressively decentralized. Now
yep,
users have the value out of those things. So with Huddle's protocol, what we are envisioning is that people, whenever they're hosting nodes, they would be earning from day one, from both from the transaction fees or from the block reward itself. We just don't want to dump the technology on that. Okay, it will work. the application will come. There's already an up and running application that is Huddle01.com with its own internal network effect, and that network effect has came intrinsically, like people are liking that Huddle product. And how's that coming is from the crypto primitives that enables it to do, like your NFT as avatars, token gating, and all of those things.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that we are actually seeing, and we are actually solving that smoothly solving that chicken and egg out cold start problem that you are actually identified very well.
Yeah, that's good. So, I mean, is there a way, like, what are the biggest sort of road bumps that you have in front of you right now, and how do you see, potentially people from our community or audience, helping out? What's going to make Huddle One a success per your standard? Like, how does that sound like for you? The next milestones that you want to hit for it to be a success, and how, if you had a call to action or an ask, what would that sound like, in terms of asking the broader community?
Absolutely. So I think we have been building heads down. We are a team of 20 people now, actually, in which 10 people are core team members and 10 people are interns, but they're also the core team members. They are the backbones of how Huddle has been built. And we didn't really believe in doing a marketing a lot, because marketing without a product doesn't make a lot of
Yeah.
sense. You get a lot of, like, you can get a bump on your token price, but we didn't have a token as well, because we also had a different approach to it. So now in the last 3 months, the product is completely live. That means your browser is live. That means you can do a proper call like Google Meet, exactly the same experience, just in a much more open way.
Yeah.
You have an iOS app and now your Android app as well, where you can do it. It's a proper self-serving product where you can have a proper, if let's suppose you want to do a token gated call, just go
It's
on
scalable.
to,
It's ready to
it's
rock.
yeah, it's ready to rock. And we have done 10,000 meetings in total right now. What we aspire in the next 6 months is that we do 10,000 meetings on a daily basis. And that's where we need a
Whoa.
lot of word of mouth, where people trust it, that, hey, this is good. We'll completely move out of the ecosystem of Google Meet and Zoom, because this is where the Web3 community belongs. And that's something which would ask for all the people who really believe in using Brave over Chrome, or believe in using DuckDuckGo over
Yeah.
were essentially Google, or using their NFTs being the Web3 space, and believing in that regenerative cryptoeconomics, the regenerative world in itself. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the ask from the community. Yeah.
Cool. So if I were to end into sort of because that's all great and fun and everything, but like, what's in it for your team, in the sense that, yeah, you're building something amazing for the community, but from where I stand, unless I didn't see where I pay for this, uh, how does it work? Like, how does it become sustainable for you in the mid and long term? And you know, uh, I heard you say you have thoughts of potentially launching a token, or you've launched a token. And yeah, so I'd love to hear you sort of, are you, expecting or planning some form of, type of service fee or um, subscription model? How does that work?
Yeah. So in terms of the short-term thing on the platform itself, what we are seeing is that you can probably engineer experience. That means that you can use the platform right now for free. That's all good. But let's suppose you want to have your own custom proper, have your own front end where there are bored apes roaming around. You'll have an AR filter that means your face will get started by your NFT itself, an MR filter as well, and stuff like that. And also, if you want to
Extra
mint your
features.
extra features like Discord versus Discord Nitro. So that kind of environment where it will be
Hmm.
like a Discord Nitro itself. We'll add some spice to it by while making these things in terms of like a license as an NFT itself, so that becomes much more interesting for people to play around and use. So now your custom sub domains will become a license as an NFT itself. So doing a couple of things there, a lot of good plans there. I actually released a bit of alpha, but it's cool. So this is how we are planning on the short term. In the long term, it's more on the lines of SDKs itself. That means people who want to use our infrastructure itself. They want to rent out the infrastructure. They can use our SDKs, they can use our APIs, and that's where we'll be charging based on per user per minute basis. That means the more users on a per user per minute, that's where the pricing will come into. And those pricings will also be approximately 50% lesser than the current competition in the market, because we are using a lot of Web3 native stacks in the SDKs itself. So these are the two business models. And token in future will be essentially having all these accruals also happening.
Yep. Ayush has done wonderful job. Like, but I will summarize it, right? So the monetization comes from the two way. First is customizing your Web3 meeting experience, and second is the renting out the media infrastructure, RTC infrastructure that we have right now. But in future, it'll all the value accrual will all happen with the help of crypto economics. So with the help, so there would be a formation of marketplace, right? And in marketplace there would be a transactions happening. So if number of transactions have, if there are more number of transactions, the protocol gains more value. There's more value accrual. Now, how these transactions happen? This transaction happen basically through a token that is like purchasing a unit commodity service, right? And so, and the unit commodity service in our case is like RTC, and we're also seeing other services that are coming up. Other is storage, third is live streaming, right? So we can build it like a fat protocol itself. So that is where all the value accrual will happening, and we have designed it in a very such way that the protocol in its initial phases it will be focused on growth, and in future it will become sustainable in nature. So there will be a smart feed forward loop that will make it sustainable in nature. So think of it like a rocket, right? A rocket has a it goes to the space by burning some fuel, but once it's in orbit it becomes sustainable in nature. So now it is doing its job also, providing that services, and it's like using solar, like very less fuel to do that, all of those things.
Yeah,
So
it's
the
benefiting the
so
initial. It's benefiting from the initial push.
Exactly. So that's like the crypto economics, right? So that will be like growth and sustainability that we are designing it for. Currently, it's in R&D phase, but yep, we would hope to make it out more in blogs and podcasts and in upcoming things, so that we educate community how we are able to do it. Plus, we would also love to have views of feedback of the community itself, like how can we take this forward itself.
Awesome, man. This is really really exciting stuff, and I feel there's so much great synergies between Embr and Huddle01. The way you see the space, the way you go about introducing your product, and I feel your service will be of great value to our community because as we've discussed prior to coming on air, we're going to be a gateway where there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of projects that will launch using Embr technology, and ultimately, we're not in the business of building what you built. So that means we're complementary, and hopefully, as well the projects that are using Huddle01, if they ever require the tools needed to go from ideation to launch, then we'll be here. So yeah, I don't know if you have any final words or anything like that, but I'd like to really take the time to thank you for coming on, and I think you guys will have tremendous amount of success.
Oh yeah.
Susmit, extremely smart, and regarding technology and everything like that, and Ayush, you have the Indian blend for sure in you, regarding business minded and everything, and I am definitely not worried about your future. Product looks amazing. Dan, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
I'll be one of the first people to pay for that customizable huddle lobby because I think that's actually awesome.
Thanks a lot, Dan, and thanks a lot, Jason. I just one thing which I always tell whenever, as compliment, whenever we get anyone to host us and have a good call, is that it's rare that like for example, Sushmit also explains so much into the protocol itself. It happens when he also sees that the questions are also coming at such a deep rooted level, which you also asked to us regarding that as well, and the way you understood even the RTC point of view or how things are moving in the current infrastructure centralized way. So I really believe that the way you also, the way at Embr you are also thinking philosophically regarding how to solve a cold start problem and solve a PMF. Though you have a token, but solving a PMF still, you can just bootstrap the network effect for the start. But how can you sustain it in the future? And that's where I believe that we need more like projects to have a discussion with you, with your team, and we need more of these things in order to have a proper scalable Web3 and to reach that global chasm of 100 million people in the crypto world by the end of, let's say, 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it sort of began in a way that is very siloed, the crypto space and Web3 and things like that. But I think that right now, what we're sort of trying to do, at least lead by example, is to create this sort of collective intelligence that can be leveraged by anyone, not necessarily in a technological standpoint, but more as, how can we share experience and it's a space that is really complex and is not accessible. But at the end of the day, this is something that we tend to try to say is, most people, they don't really care about how centralized or decentralized finance work. They just want it to work. That's bottom line. That's what matters. So with you, whether it's in a decentralized or, a centralized way, I mean, your end users, what they're looking for is something that's easy to use, that's fun, that represents their current reality and, the type of values and ethos that they believe in. And I think that the current system or the current sort of the thing that we live in right now can't deliver that. So the solution that you're providing, just as much as we do, in terms of helping people go from ideation to launch in a decentralized, sort of leveraging decentralized finance technology, what we're enabling them, just like back in the day with Kickstarter, they enabled removing, all the middlemans, and they created proximity between the project leader and the early adopters. And we're trying to do that, but more in a how can I own a stake and how can I be engaged in a way that hasn't been possible before. So yeah, the more we are, the better this space is going to grow. And I'm excited about your future. And I'm sure we'll cross paths many, many times going forward.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Ayush. Thank you, Sumit.
Thanks
Have a
again,
great
guys.
day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Today at Embr. If you like the show, please rate and review. You can find us on all of the major podcasting platforms. You can also tune in to our live stream on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.